Hello everyone and welcome. My name's Helen Chapman and I'm Joint Events Coordinator for the IATEFL YLTSIG. Today I have with me Lucy Bailey, who is currently based in Egypt. Lucy, what online resources or tools have you tried since you started teaching young learners online?
Lots. The first thing I would say actually is that I think a really good resource for teachers to start with when you go online is to do the Future Learn Teaching English Online course. And that was the first thing I did, because it was sort of like we were thrown into chaos and everyone's kind of panicking. And actually doing that course for, I think it went on for about 4 weeks, actually gave me loads of really useful resources and stuff out of that. So I would say that's a really good place to start. Okay. In terms of actual resources for class, quizzes is brilliant. So if you like using Kahoot in like the face-to-face classroom, quizzes is much better for using online because the kids can see the questions on their phones. So I think that's a really, really good one. There's also one called Voki, and this is slightly like left field, but I think it's really fun. Is you can create like characters with voices. So for example, at like the start of the class, you can create a character, and the range of characters is really broad. So it can just be like emoji faces, or like, I did it for the genie because we had a lesson that had the genie in it. So I made the genie and I kind of like got him to say like, welcome the children, make sure they had a pen and piece of paper. And then later in the lesson, they had to ask like 3 wishes from the genie. So rather than saying it to me, they could actually say it to the genie himself. So Voki is a really fun, like just a fun one for, I think, making lessons slightly more interesting. There's one called Learning Apps that I use a lot. And there's another one that's really similar to it, and I can't remember the name, but what I like to use Learning Apps for is vocabulary. And so the kids can match the picture to the word on the website, and it tells them if they've done it right, it tells them if they've done it wrong. What I found is that once they come back to like the main classroom, is you need to then have all the pictures there and then check that they did actually get them right, that they do remember, and you can drill them in CCQ at that point. But it's quite a good way for getting it to sort of test whether or not they know the words. Another one, well actually 2 that are quite similar, Padlet and Linoit are quite good. I found if I put like a question at the start of the class, like for example, like what did you do last weekend? Okay, and then they go to the website and they can write their reply and like stick it up. And I think Linoit is the one that looks like you can have it look like a cork board and like sticky notes on there, so they can kind of add theirs and it like builds up. But Padlet's fairly similar for that. So you can use that for all sorts of stuff, like you can use it for feedback at the end of the class as well, and adding to that. And another one I really like is Makebelieve comics. I think that's what it's called, Makebelieve comics. And you can really quickly like make comics. So I sometimes use it at the start of the class, and I like make 3 pictures, and then whilst the other kids are kind of turning up, because the thing about the online classroom is they're always late. You get someone who's there really early and then someone who's there like 10 minutes, 15 minutes later. And they can kind of look at the pictures and decide what's going on, and maybe you've got I don't know, a gap fill for the sentences, so you're testing what they did in the last lesson. So that's really good for that. And then there was actually one that I haven't tried this, but I saw someone use it last night because I was doing I was part of like a kind of attending a lecture, and it's called Slido.com, and it was really good because, and I think it must be similar to Mentimeter, which is also another one that I've not particularly used, but where you gain like live data from like your class. So you ask them a question, they submit their answer, and then you kind of see like the percentages of like, you know, for each answer. And I thought that would be really cool. I think particularly for like teens, if you're doing like a project and stuff, I think that would be really, really useful. I think they're like the main online ones. I guess the other one actually is like online voice recorders. So there's quite a few. I'm not going to like say any particular websites, because if you just Google like free online voice recorder, they come up. But that's really useful for either you recording vocabulary for them to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess it depends. If you have a platform where you can share stuff with them outside of the class, it's really good for that. So like after the lesson, once you've drilled it in class and you've gone over the vocab, you can then put the recording on there.
Mm-hmm.
And also they can then record stuff as well and send it to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really useful.
Great.
But the other thing that I've been really big on in the online classroom is like drama and movement, because they're sat in front of their screens all the time. And whenever I say to them, like, what have you been doing this week? It's usually like, oh, I was on my phone. Like, you're like, come on. So I try and get them moving as much as possible. So I always start with drama games. So most of the drama stuff that you do in the face-to-face classroom, you can completely like transfer to the online classroom quite easily. So for example, a lot of us know doing like name and an action, or, you know, mime an action, and then we all guess what it is. So I use that quite a lot at the start of the class, and I just give it a different like theme depending on what the lesson is. So it's like you take the same activity and reuse it, but it gets them moving straight away. There's also a really good game called What Are You Doing, which when you do face-to-face, you have everyone in a big circle, and someone starts, they go into the middle and they do an action. So I don't know, like start playing the guitar. Someone walks in and says, what are you doing? And then I would say, oh, I'm playing the guitar. And we both start playing the guitar, okay? I step out, the next person steps in, goes, what are you doing? And the second person changes the action.
Okay.
So I do this online, and I give, because on Zoom you can rename them, so I give the kids like a number, so I check that they will know what number they are. Inevitably it always falls down at some point because I forget. But I give them all a number, and then we basically do exactly the same thing. I will start and I do an action. Someone, number 2, says, what are you doing? And then I say, oh, I'm brushing my teeth, and we both start brushing our teeth. I stop, and then number 3 comes in. So a lot of it you can quite easily transfer online. And I think the next step for me I want to try with, because I've just done, I guess, our first term online of YLs, is for the like summer camp. I actually want to try and get them like stood up and like moving as well, because I've done a few workshops like that online where I've been a participant, and they work really well. Like, you're in your space as well, so you almost feel like less inhibited, because no one's around and can really, like, people could see you, but everyone's too busy doing their thing. So I want to try and get them doing that a little bit more, but I've incorporated movement in terms of so if we're doing a reading exercise and the answer is like true or false, rather than, because I think with the online classroom it's really tempting to always be like, write in the chat, and I think it gets a little bit like, oh, what again, like so I get stand up and sit down. So I'll say like, oh, if it's true, stand up. If it's false, sit down. So it's exactly the same thing. It's just that they're standing up, sitting down, you're getting them moving, and also you can play with the speed of it. And I quite like that.
That's great.
And then if it's false, you still do exactly the same thing, where you say, you know, okay, so tell me, so what was Jane doing? And so you're still listing the correct answers. So it doesn't really change it. It just means they're not having to type in the chat all the time.
And just like a bit of variety as well. Yeah,
exactly. And I think that's really important, because otherwise I think they get used to looking at the same thing as well on the screen, which I think is really bad for them. So I think you as a teacher as well. I mean, I find online teaching exhausting, like in a different way to face-to-face. Like my body isn't physically exhausted in the same way. When you're face-to-face, you're on your feet all the time. But it is, I think you're compensating for the fact that like they've only got this. But I think as a teacher you do need to be doing that. You still need to be quite gestural in order to like kind of maintain their attention. The other thing I started playing with as well is I was actually going to show you. This has been my latest thing. We made puppets and playing with the puppets online, and I think I'm trying now to incorporate like a very, very mini arts and crafts, because that's what they're used to doing in the face-to-face. And I was like, how do you do that when you can't provide the material? So the challenge is almost like they can find one piece of paper and they can probably find a pen or a pencil. So then for you as a teacher, it's like, well, what can we do with it? I quite like that. Like,
yeah,
the
challenge of when you really have to be imaginative, like
yeah,
because
exactly.
you can't give them a whole box of craft materials.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
great. Thank you so much, Lucy. So many good ideas. Thank you for sharing, and very practical, I think. So thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for watching, and bye for now.